Greetings, citizens of Fairfield Bay, and to everyone who has tuned in today for the latest ramblings of the Fairfield Bay Gadfly. We're changing up the format just a bit with happenings and comments on the international, national, state, and local levels, along with fun facts from history. Now, today in history. On February 27th, 1827, citizens of New Orleans, Louisiana, celebrate their first ever Mardi Gras. However, the first such celebration in the U.S. was at Mobile, Alabama in 1703, more than a century before New Orleans. On February 27th, 1920, the U.S. rejected an offer of peace from the fledgling Soviet Union. Something that seems to carry over to today. On February 27th, 1980, the song I Will Survive wins the first and last Grammy Award for Best Disco Recording, Boogie Down. Going back a couple of days, on February 25th, 1919, the state of Oregon passed the first ever excise tax on gasoline. As we see Oregon today, it hasn't changed. Now they're attempting to tax the miles a citizen drives. Some things never change. So much for the fun part of the broadcast. Now let's get serious. On the international level, this past Friday, as I sat watching news reports from Ukraine, people running into bomb shelters, trying to leave the country, aircraft being shot down, and the fire and smoke of Russian attacks, I couldn't help but be reminded of Vietnam. I will remember until the day I die the sound and the ground-shaking impact of a Russian rocket as it hit the flight line. The black smoke and sparks of an incoming mortar round that narrowly missed myself and others as I drove back from the Army Camp McDermott in the train. Of course, there's always the sound of the incoming sirens, which carried over to Arkansas as the same sound of a tornado siren. For many years, I totally hated the sound of the tornado sirens, as I fully expected to feel the ground shake or hear the high-pitched whine of a rocket as it plummets toward its target. A large majority of Americans do not truly understand what it's like to live in a war zone. To know that in an instant, everything you have strived for, what you have accomplished for yourself, for your family, and your children, your family themselves, can be destroyed. This is what the citizens of Ukraine are facing every waking minute of their lives, and also while they sleep. Political pundit Ben Shapiro recently tweeted, "When Joe Biden says that things in Ukraine are unfolding as he predicted, that merely underscores his idiocy. If you know something bad is gonna happen months from now, and you're right and you didn't prepare, this makes you an idiot," close quote. Of course, he caught it from the left for not saying how Biden could have stopped Russia from invading Ukraine, which is a valid point. However, the fact remains that old Huff and Puff Biden did not and has not truly proposed any significant sanctions in either travel, commerce, monetary policy, or any other sanction that will not only get Russia's attention, but also China's. Of course, all the Viagra in the world will not affect the impotence of the United Nations. Any possible effective actions by the UN are easily vetoed by Russia in the Security Council. NATO and European allies aren't about to make any moves unless they are backed by the full force of the American military, which we know will not happen, nor should it. The only possible answer at this point is punitive economic actions that will isolate Russia from world commerce. Will that happen? I wouldn't bet on it, coming from a weak Biden administration. What can America do about the events unfolding before us on the nightly news? Sounds kind of like Vietnam. The U.S. government needs to supply as much in the way of military materials as it can. Think about all the military materials left abandoned in Afghanistan. I'm sure we have some extras we can share. Think about the Lend-Lease program that kept Nazi Germany from invading Britain. Also, we must remember that Ukraine is not immune from its own forms of corruption. Thank Hunter Biden for an American connection. However, the individual citizens of Ukraine are the ones who need our support. For now, I say cut off all trade and commerce with Russia until they withdraw all troops from Ukraine. That, along with our prayers, are desperately needed. Now, on a national level, after decades of lobbying by the money-for-nothing crowd, it appears that the U.S. House of Representatives will pass a slavery reparations bill. Of course, who is involved in pushing such racist legislation is one of the leading racial dividers, Sheila Jackson Lee. Representative Jackson Lee seems to think reparations will, quote-unquote, heal America. It's my personal belief that reparations would provide an even deeper wedge within American society. Fortunately, such legislation will never make it through the U.S. Senate, but the fact that important legislation is passed over for consideration with any minute in time that is spent on such stupid and ill-fated legislation is an affront to the American people. On a state level, Governor Hutchinson, in between COVID comments, had to get involved in preening for the press over the Ukraine issue. Why? No telling, but Asa truly does need to leave well enough alone. That is, unless the state of Arkansas has any economic ties to Russia, either public or private. In that case, the state should cut any and all ties, economic or otherwise. That would be our small contribution to the Ukraine cause. Now, locally, what do we have coming up in the future in Fairfield Bay? Could it be that ugly word, annexation? That's right. According to what the Gadfly has gleaned, on Monday, February 28th at 2 p.m., the Fairfield Bay City Council will have their monthly workshop at the city offices. Supposedly, at said meeting, the council will again disastrously bring up annexation. This not-so-long-dead issue should stay where it has been, dead and buried. However, now it has taken the form of zombie legislation that will not go away, whether it's dead or not. It's time for someone to put a knife into the head of such unnecessary and divisive actions. Annexation is a cheap way for a city to obtain additional taxes without going to their existing tax base. Before anything close to annexation is considered, the city should look inward into its own structure and find ways to cut costs without sucking people who have no desire to live within the city limits into the budgetary quicksand. I say to the Fairfield Bay City Council, vote no to annexation. Kill it now. Make it go away. This concludes today's Fairfield Bay Gadfly Presents. I thank each one of you who listens, and I encourage everyone to take an interest into what happens within the city and the community club. This is the Fairfield Bay Gadfly signing off.